if she can see me. Hello. I want to talk to you today. I have a. It's very hard. I've been watching news for the last 2 years or so. The progress of what's going on around Africa, mostly the country where I was from, and my family come from Ethiopia. Uh, they're born in Ethiopia. Let's say I was also born in Ethiopia, ethnic Oromo. I'm ethnically Oromo. Oromo is made out about half of the country, probably more than half of the country, very large. More than 60% of the Ethiopian population are Oromo. The other half is Amhara, and then the second group is Tigray and Somalis, and then there's 80 something different groups in Ethiopia, but they are very small in numbers. People like Anfar, AFAR. They make up about less than 2 million people, and the small group like that scattered all over the country. In today, the Ethiopian population over 100 million, and there are pending genocide, pending the condition that's been blundering throughout the last 2 years. The country is turning into ISIS environment, like Islamic State, Boko Haram, those terrorist organizations that are conducting horrible human massacre all over Nigeria, and ISIS all over Middle East. They're going wild, killing people, the whole town, wiping out millions of people without consequence. In the name, in the description of their book, and this is what's going on recently in Ethiopia as well. I am Oromo, like I said. Most of my family have been killed. Some of them still imprisoned in Ethiopia. A lot of them in a rebel organization that were fighting to try to overthrow the Ethiopian government initially, starting before 1960. My father's, his brothers, his uncle, his cousin, most of them were chased out of the country. Some of them got killed. Most of his children. My father has 7 children, and 2 of them still in prison. 1 died, and 3 of them in OLF. OLF, the rebel group that's fighting to try to overthrow the government for the last since 1960. And what's happening? I was at some point also, should I say, almost joined the OLF when I was in Kenya at a young age, and most of my brothers in there. I have a strong desire to fight for freedom, to get my people out of oppression, out of dictatorship. I've witnessed a lot of horrendous things happening, conducted by the government, taking over the lands of people, where the people have no other resources, where they live in there. They've been living there for as long as they can remember, living off the lands, coffees, corns, and all kinds of stuff they grow off of the land. And the government basically come and take over their lands when the new government at the time take over the country. They taxing everybody. But of course, it's a poor population. They can't afford to pay taxes. So what they do, they give you a time, let's say 30 days to pay taxes, which is a huge amount. Their intention is to just take over your land and sell it to the foreign government, not government, the foreign companies, and the company will grow things on the land. This is a very vegetation area where a lot of things can be grown if you have the resources to clear the lands and be able to handle the labor of the conducting farming. So the government basically sell the lands to the foreign companies and then collect the people, force the people off of it. Whether you go voluntarily or they will kill you. If you fight, they will kill you. If you don't, they will just grab you and throw you in the back of a truck. And then most of the time people disappear, and that was some of the conditions. And then if you support the rebel group that were trying to overthrow the government, they will automatically kill you. They will go into your home and take you to prison, torture you. And if the case is too high, if a lot of people knows about your cases, like for example George Floyd, the guy, African American guy that was killed by the cops, his case is known all over the world, all over the United States. If people knows your case, the effect that it has in the whole population, they don't kill you. Because if they kill you, it will expose them. The people will know that if you stand up for your rights, that things not gonna work out. And the government afraid of people rising up, so they will just throw you in jail, make up all kind of reasons why you should be kept in jail. That was what it was. And then 1993, and there's some fighting where Tigray, Ethiopia, and Eritrea separated, and anyway, new government take forms, and this new government normally have huge influence on. They come in saying democracy is how we're gonna rule the country. Everybody's rights is gonna be respected. There's no more robberies and killing and all that crazy shit is not gonna be tolerated. We're gonna hold elections. Whoever the public decided to choose is gonna run the country. Things are looking up and up. Everybody was happy. Most of the people are happy, and of course the rebels, the people who were initially fighting to overthrow the government, did not believe this. They know this is a lie. They didn't go back to join the government, but some of them have doubt, and whatever they're fighting for, they're not gonna be able to overthrow this government. And one faction, one side of their groups is saying, let's just accept this government, this offer, join them, and we're gonna win through the elections. And they did for a short time. When the election comes, the government don't have any more fighting from the rebels. The rebels basically didn't surrender totally, but they're not fighting the government, and the government was able to spread their troops, their soldiers all over the country, secure some of the major areas of the country from where the rebel could start up trouble. Once they secure the area all over the country with their armies and tanks and whatnot, the government basically kicked the rebels out. They start killing the rebels in very large numbers, in huge numbers. Anybody and everybody who support the rebel, who and they will collect anybody that have, who don't vote for the government, who are voicing their disagreement with the government, will be either killed or thrown in the cages, or they're basically running for their life. A lot of families and children, they just run into Kenya, Sudan, Egypt, Eritrea. They're basically running away from these issues, because once they catch you, Ethiopian government have this terrible history of torturing people so badly. Most people would rather die than being captured and being arrested by Ethiopian government, because they know the consequence is very heavy. It's not like they just throw you in jail and you be living there. That would be a heaven for a lot of people. They don't do it like that. They torture you. They put a needle, how power tools, they have those power tools, and they put needles inside your bodies, just drilling holes into your knees, until you can't, until you pass out. And then they keep on doing this years and years and years and years. And a lot of times they will release people who are completely crippled, to make an example of the people who are out there, of the public, from silencing them, scare them to submit to this terrible government. But anyway, forward that to today. This group, there are two groups that at the time, the group that's running and doing this stuff for Amhara, the Amhara, AMHAR, the Amhara is the one who's doing this at the time. A small portion of it. Remember, always in the government, there's a small group of people who are causing so much chaos. And if you are trying to stand up and say, hey, you guys are fucking out of your mind, you risk losing your life too. Just like if you live in an ISIS controlled environment, in a terrorist Muslim areas, if you speak up when they catch somebody and they're throwing them out of the building, off the towers, or if you witness them beheading somebody, cutting their throat off, you can't just come out and say, hey, stop, this is, you can't do this on my watch. It's not possible. If you do that, you'll be the next guy in line. That they're gonna cut off their head. They're gonna cut off your head. So a lot of the Amhara people are in a hard and rock, in a tough spot. A lot of them did speak up at the time. They did. When they did speak up, they lose their lives, they lose their properties. Some of them risk. They have to run away from the government in very large numbers, and living in immigrant refugee camps. Just speaking up for what was happening to their neighbors, what was happening when they don't have to. They could have just kept their mouth shut and lived luxury life like everybody else. I mean, keep their lands and their cattle and everything else that they've been living on for the last 100 of years. Their family was living on, but some of them did not. They speak up, and the consequence is a disaster for them. Just remembering that when somebody protected you when you were in your worst time, and this is what's happening right now. Those Amhara people, they lost power they lost power a long time ago to this small group, different group. This small group is called Tigray Liberation Front. Look it up. Ethiopia, TPLF is called TPLF, Tigray Liberation Front. These guys, they win the war between themselves, Ethiopia and Eritrea. They win the war, they capture the country, right? And then after they capture the country, they kick out the rebel and silence everybody else. And election after elections, every election you go to, they have securities there that will make sure that the people who show up to vote will vote for the current government. If you don't, they will just wait until you leave, change your vote selections to whoever they want it. It's gonna look like you vote for the current government and everything was good. If you speak up and say, hey, if you find out somehow after you give them the vote paperwork, you find out that the vote was not what you intended, and your vote was actually given to the government. If you speak up, make noises, they can silence you easily. Burn down your houses, kidnap your kid, all kind of crazy stuff. So a lot of people don't say anything. A lot of people will vote, and they've been winning this vote 99% for the last 20-30 years. Recently, what started the genocide? Some guy, their president died. I don't know what happened to him, but just health condition. A lot of people think that he was poisoned, but he died, right? The TPLF president of the country, the guy's name Mengistu. I mean, not Mengistu. His name is Zenawi. Yeah, his name is Zenawi. So he dies, right? Mallas Zenawi, that's the name of the guy. His name escaped me for some reason. Mallas Zenawi, the recent, before the recent president, prime minister of the Ethiopia, the one before him dies from the health condition of some kind. A lot of people say he was poisoned, but we don't know. Either way, he dies, right? And then the people start student protests. I think if you're watching the news, there's a lot of student protests going on around the world. Egypt, Middle East, and in Ethiopia also there was some small amount of protests going on. Over 200 students was killed by the government, right? But anyway, because of the internet, because of Facebook, YouTube, a lot of this crazy killing, torturing, things that are looked down upon by the Western society is being shown up too much. So the government is basically Ethiopian government that was running the country at the time, embarrassed. They basically should be ashamed by the Western society. They can't speak of fairness, of freedom, of democracy, of just society, because look at what they're doing to their own people. And to save faces, they start shoveling city, the council, whoever is running the country, the position of the city, head of the cities, the school, governors in their country. They start changing things around to try to make things better. They also get a huge amount of investment from a bunch of different countries, companies, a lot of Chinese companies, and to try to make, to look good in the front of other societies when people come in to do business. And so they elected one guy, Abu, the one that was in charge right now, and this guy's been in part of the government for most of his life. He was there during the Tigray. He was there during Amhara genocide. He was in part of the government during that time. He was actually in charge of the military. But this guy, the people that were being killed throughout this entire mayhem, this entire time is the indigenous people. After every government, new or old, the indigenous people are the ones that suffer the most. And the indigenous people are also are the ones that are huge in numbers. about 50, 48, million of people. I'm talking about the number of indigenous are larger than the people who are running the government, who are running the country. The Tigray, about 6 or 7 million people. The Amhara, probably about 20 or 30 million. Oromo people, over 40 to 50 million, right? So these Oromos are mostly very uneducated. I'm Oromo, but it's just best to say it exactly, for tell the truth for what it is. If you're educated, if you're competent, you won't be living under this kind of condition for your whole existence. But they've been living under this condition for a very long time. They can't figure out how to get out of this crap, right? And a lot of them, like my fathers and many other people, they run away and start fighting to try to overthrow the government, but they can't get the support of the Western society. They can't get enough support. They can't get weapons, tanks, helicopters. Even if the helicopter were given to them, like a fighter jet, they don't even know what to do with it. They don't have the education. They don't value education. They were religious, manic. They think this whole thing is gonna be fixed by Allah, by God. And while they're fighting, they're not taking the fighting seriously, to the point where they're sending people to school to learn how to fly how to fly fighter jet, how to drive tanks, and all kind of weapon training. They don't do this. They just do the old school ways with the shotguns and all this little stuff, which is never gonna happen. You're not gonna win a war with a simple small arm type of environment. Especially when you're trying to overthrow the government, they basically are running the rebels. They're running a guerrilla type of war where they hit the government soldiers area. They hit the area, and then they run. They will attack, destroy government asset, and they run, destroy this and that. That's what they're doing. They're basically like a mafia, robbing the cities that support the government, robbing the neighbors that support the government, the environment, the businesses, and then they're just kind of living off of these robberies. And at the same time, their ideology is that they are actually fighting to stop the oppressions, to bring the freedom to the people. And then the reason why they're out there is because they want to live dignified, ruling themselves without having to kneel down to anybody. But in reality, things are different. And this rebel group who are trying to overthrow the government, also majority of them are Muslims. The ideology is similar to Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab and ISIS, even though they didn't take to that point, but the idea is very much similar. Afterlife, killing someone who is not Muslim it will bring them closer to God, and this is what the God wanted them to do. And it's like a maniac organization. But this is how the society is over there. People are religious. They go pray. They think that God is in charge of everything. And those who don't believe in God, if those who don't believe in God are actually running their life by fighting back, they fight on behalf of God, if that makes any sense. Because they believe in God, their God is gonna be on their side. Therefore, if they fight in the enemy of God, God is gonna be on their side. They're not gonna lose. Even if they lose in this life, they're gonna win on the next life. They're gonna be positively accepted and welcomed by God. This nonsense, crazy stuff. I support their right to fight these the oppressions, to live a dignified life, to get rid of the dictatorship. but the way they're doing it is just crazy. And to get to the point of today's genocide, these Oromo people, the indigenous people, take over the country recently, and they take over the country not by force, but through political maneuvering. The guy, after the prime minister of the country died, the new guy bring everybody. He says, everybody welcome to come to the country. Everybody, I'm talking about the people who were chased away by the previous government, the rebel groups. There's a bunch of different rebel groups in Ethiopia. There are Amhara, Ogaden, Oromo, and even Oromo have a bunch of different rebel groups. There are guerrilla fighters from different subgroups that were fighting in different areas. This guy, bad idea by the way, he welcomed all of them to come home. How, without having any contentious things in place. He invited them all of them home, fully armed. The group were coming from Eritrea, the neighboring countries, Sudan, the rebels, and some of them coming from Kenya. They go back home. They go back to Ethiopia, riding in a vehicle, waving flags, fully armed, automatic weapons, and they went home relatively peace, a little bit between the government and the rebels. The idea is that everybody is going to be living enjoying freedom. Nobody's going to be oppressed by anybody. The people is going to be in charge. The people, Ethiopian people, is going to be in charge of their own country. They're going to elect whoever they want. If they elected the rebel, be it the rebel who's going to run the country. If they elected the government, be it the government that run the country. And the government and the rebel will come to a vague agreement where they're going to be disarmed. The rebel is going to lay down their weapons. They're going to go out and try to get elected by the people. But things didn't happen like that. Immediately after a couple of months, the rebels went back to what they do best, killing people. Robberies, bank robberies of an asset, store robberies, and huge, and killing people, blocking the road in the middle of the night in the jungle somewhere with lorry or buses transporting people, taking people off the bus and just killing everybody. And also the groups that were used to be in charge were being massacred by the Oromo people. I'm talking about like similar things that happen in the United States, where Black Lives Matter protests going around, burning down businesses, going into the business and taking the properties. You see sometimes the owner will come out begging them to leave him alone. He's been working his whole life for this. And they will either kill him there, or they just beat him so bad so where the owner of the business will be unconscious, right? And in a lot of these, you will see a lot of them just shoot the owner of the business. This in Ethiopia. It happened in a very large scale for a couple of months, from cities to cities, town to town, and block by block. The neighborhood, the houses. This is houses will get burned down. The typical thing is that people will go in large numbers, 500-600 people. In the smaller scales, they will go burn houses after houses, take whatever little things that person have, and kill the person, and it just continues from cities to cities. The cars will get burned down. All the transportation stuff will get burned down. The people who are not Muslims, Oromo were the one who's doing it. They will kill anyone who's not Muslims. They will rob them. And you see a lot of videos where they tie them up, they tie behind their back, and and hold them for hostages, like ransom money, and people begging for their lives. These Amhara people, they're Amhara people, and the TPLF, the Tigray, are the most that are being who are being targeted by this group, by the Oromo groups, who are being they're going after. The Oromo is going after the Amhara and the Tigray in a huge massacre. I watched a video of the whole village is running for their lives. The kid is asking their parent, "What happened? What is it that we did? Why are they coming after us?" People coming after them with machetes, and the fathers and the mothers begging to leave the kids alive, basically to spare the kids' life, and offering themselves to be killed. And you see that they don't care. They kill all of them. And this is horrendous things going on right now, and nobody's covering it. Nobody's covering it. Just like in the United States right now, when you get attacked by Black Lives Matter, if you're white, nobody listens to you. Nobody, even if you have a video of Black Lives Matter attacking you, they will somehow find a way to tell you you are the one that's at fault. You are the one that provoked the attack. You deserve to be attacked because you provoked the attack. You called them names or whatever. And the people over there are actually much more vulnerable. They're more vulnerable than people in the West. Over there, the government who was in charge of the country were also the people who were attacking them. Imagine if Black Lives Matter take over the United States, and the crime is committed against you as a white person or any other group, and then you come and try to report the crimes to the Black Lives Matter police or the president or whatever. Nobody will listen to you. The similar to if ISIS take control of a country, and you are non-Muslim, try to report the crimes committed by Muslims. Nobody will listen to you, and they will celebrate in their hearts that it's glad this happened to you. This is what's happening in Ethiopia. Huge amount of Amhara and Tigray people being killed. And I think based on the number of, how do I know this? I also have a number of videos, a lot of videos sent it to me by people who live there, who see this every day, and this incident happening. It's all over the internet too. But I have some videos that show specifically where 2-3 hour long, where people going out just